Hey folks, welcome back to another Civilization 6 video. And in this video, we are going to kick off by going over how you can tailor your map settings to match your preferred playstyle and avoid some of the annoyances that can come along with getting a poor start. So we're going to be discussing these factors in terms of just no mods with just the generic expansion content along with the New Frontier Pass. So let's go ahead and get started. And we're gonna be discussing this in terms of some of the deity level AI advantages. So let's start with the first concept, which is religion. So I've discussed this in previous videos, and religion caps are always based upon the map size and are not adjusted for the number of players if you are just playing on generic no mod Civ 6. So the map size for wetlands here defaults to small. So if you have a small map size, it will default to 6 total players, being yourself and 5 AI players. The small map size caps religions that can be founded at 4 religions. So 2 players will get locked out of religion, which means that you're going to have to focus probably fairly early on getting astrology, and you're sort of at the mercy of whether or not you are able to run across a natural wonder early in terms of whether or not you can efficiently research astrology. Not to mention, it's not really the best part of the tech tree to be going down in terms of early ramp up, unless you're going with a very specific strategy around getting an early religion founded. So, given that, there are a couple of different options. You could, of course, just reduce the number of players to 4, in which case, with 4 maximum religions, you are going to get a religion no matter what, and you can wait as long as you want to do that. Now, the pitfall to that is that you're going to have a lot less player density on the map, and that can sort of hamper you in terms of maybe getting certain boosts, such as writing, as well as if you want to play a game oriented towards having maybe some conflict or diplomacy early on. So that's not necessarily the best solution unless you just like a map with a lot of room to sort of grow. I prefer to have a more dense map. So the other option is to remove 1 player and then add Congo as one of the civs. Since Congo can't found a religion, a 5-player game with Congo will allow you to always get a religion as well. I tend to leave it as the default, because this is on the very low end of the density that I like when I'm playing as far as player density, and then also add Congo. That leaves only 1 locked out religion, and it allows you to focus on other things in terms of early teching up without having to rush into astrology and getting a holy site down or investing in Stonehenge, neither of which I find to be a very appealing option. Now, as I said, we're going to discuss this on terms of deity, and in terms of religion, it's, because they are able to tech up faster and build faster, you have more difficult time getting a religion. So nothing to really discuss in terms of start era and game speed, city state density. Now, you can ramp this up a little bit if you would like. I think that, 9 isn't bad. Sometimes you have some issues. If you're not going to be aggressive with city states and you increase the density, you're going to have a better chance at a first meet, which help because you sort of will have a better chance of them being closer to you because the AI can explore a lot more on deity because they have more units to start. So wrapping this up a little bit can help, but you also have to consider that you may be crowded in terms of having less space if you do that. But we'll go ahead and do that. Let's notch it up to 10. Disaster intensity. So this is something that I just tend to leave on the default setting. You can get some weird random stuff if you. The main reason that I don't notch this up is because the ramping it up allows the volcanoes to hit farther away, and it makes it harder to plan your cities. So you can get some really good benefits off volcanic soil by having more eruptions, but I'd prefer to just leave it at 2 so that I don't have the issue of my city center getting hit even when I'm 2 tiles away, because on settings of 3 and 4, they can damage tiles 2 hexes away. So in this case, we're going to play on wetlands map, defaults to small. Now, with the resources setting, I tend to leave it on standard. And you might say here, like, well, why don't you put it on abundant? You know, you said you're trying to avoid bad starts. And the reason for this, again, goes back to playing on deity settings. The AI is able to take advantage of abundant resources more quickly than you are able to, because they have more builders to improve those resources, and they additionally have more settlers so that they can settle around the more abundant resources. So for that reason, I tend to leave it on standard. I don't go to sparse, because then you are more likely to get issues with not having the appropriate resources to get certain boosts, particularly like stone for quarries, copper for getting the mining over resource boost, any number of boosts. But I think that even on standard, you tend to not get some of those. So that's the reason I leave it on that. If I was going to tend towards one or the other, I'd probably tend towards abundant over sparse, but I like to leave it on standard. The natural wonder selector, it's not going to really be a big deal one way or the other. There obviously are crappy natural wonders as well. And actually, crappy natural wonders, sometimes the AI will tend to try and just build around a wonder, or natural wonder, no matter what. So it's not terrible to get a crappy natural wonder, because the AI will go out of their way to settle near it, even if it's not a good one. Of course, I have that tendency as well for some reason. But so world age, I tend to change to new. And this is something that I haven't discussed much in my videos, but it has to do with the production that you get on your city center tile. So the way the city center tile works is, no matter what type of tile you settle on and what type of feature is on that tile, you will always get at least 2 food and 1 production on the tile. Now, with that said, if the tile has greater than 1 food, or I'm sorry, 2 food and 1 production, then it will get that bonus over what the amount is. So without a strategic or luxury resource that you're settling over, that the max you can get is 2 food and 2 production on the city center tile, and the minimum you can get is two food and 1 production. So that extra 1 production makes a big difference. And the only tile that you're going to get that on that doesn't have a resource on it is Plains Hills. That is the only tile that will give you 2 food and 1 production. So with that said, the new map type gives you more hills, mountains, and volcanoes. So with more hills, you are going to have a better chance of having a Plains Hills tile to settle on. So I think that that is going to give you less of a chance of having a real poor starting spot, because you're going to have more of a chance of getting the 2 food and 2 production city center tile, which makes a big difference. And at the same time, it's not really giving the AI a big boost in terms of that. They're less picky about where they settle. They're just going to settle in place. And I think that it's just more of a player advantage in that terms. Start position, I don't use legendary for the same reason that we discussed about abundant resources. I don't want to just give a legendary start to the AI, which is already boosted. Like balanced wouldn't be actually a bad option over standard. I don't know. I just like to have it on standard. With temperature, I'm not going to do cold unless I'm playing something like Canada. But I'm not going to do hot either, because I don't really want more desert. So I tend to leave that on standard. Now, rainfall is something that I think that you can change to wet, probably, and that's not going to be, that's going to be more of a player tilted advantage, because players will tend to manage their chops better in terms of woods, rainforests, and marshes than the AI will. So since you can utilize the chops better, I think that having a wet setting there is going to be something that's going to benefit you more as a player in terms of not getting a real poor start. So Barbarian Plans mode is something I haven't really decided on whether or not that's great to include or not. It gives you some you know, some options in terms of being able to buy units cheaply early, but it's also you waste extra turns fiddling around with clearing the camps out. Heroes and Legends mode, I like to leave that on. You know, the AI has been improved around using the heroes, but at the same time, you can snowball on early strategies with certain heroes. Monopolies and Corporations mode, I think, is a good mode to leave on. I like having those options. Secret Societies mode, I like to leave on for the early governor title and just having more gameplay options. Zombie defense mode, we're gonna click that off. That's something I think that is just more. It's not like great one way or the other, but I think it's just more irritating than anything. So, and as a player, you have fewer military units to just sort of to get rid of those. One thing, final thing I want to discuss about the when we talked about the world age here with hills and volcanoes and maps. One of the factors that people don't probably, I'm guessing, are not aware of as much is that the city itself has a defense value just like a unit. So like if you settle on a marsh, you're going to get like a negative, or not a marsh because that gets cleared. But basically, if you settle on a tile that has no defense modifier, you'll get no bonus defense. But if you settle on a hill, you're going to actually get that bonus defense modifier, which makes your city more resilient, whether it be to barbarians or attacking AI. So that is basically what you need to know in terms of things that you want to consider on setting up your map. So I guess we'll do some play as well here maybe. I'm going to play with Spain here because they had some fun changes in the April update where they got quite a buffed treasure fleet where now you don't have to send intercontinental trade routes to get that bonus, and you get triple that bonus if you do send intercontinental trade routes, plus the free builder if you build a city, or if you found a city that's not on the same place as your original continent. By place, I mean same continent. There's a small buff to El Escorial, 5 combat bonus instead of 4 for fighting players following other religions, and they moved mission unlock on where it falls in the tech tree. So we're going to go ahead and play with that, and that is what you want to know for setting up your map with no mods to get sort of minimal annoyances. So when we discussed World Age and we discussed the concept of how much production, or I guess how much resource value your city center has on it, we talked about settling on plains hills specifically. Now you need to understand that for some reason grasslands hills does not have that same effect. You will not get a 2 food and 2 production city center by settling on grasslands hills. So as you can see, these tiles are grasslands hills. So you do need to mouse over and not just look at the hill terrain and presume that you're going to get the favorable city center bonus. So these are all grasslands hills. So if we hit the 4 key here, we can see where the fresh water sources are. Floodplains here. And so given that, we'll probably have to actually just lose this rainforest if we want to get the favorable city center start of Plains Hills. So we're going to lose 1 turn moving, and we'll go over here and settle. So, moving away from that, which sort of sucks, but we'll go ahead and settle right here, and that will give us the grasslands and hills. I'm sorry, the plains and hills. As you can see, 2 food and 2 production. And I'm actually just going to reload the game real quick here to show the difference, just to show that you will not get that same bonus by settling on grasslands hills. Alright, so I've reloaded here back at the first turn, and just to show the difference here, I'm going to go ahead and you can see this is grasslands woods. So I'll just move over here and show, like, you might spot this and be like, oh, there's a hills right there. Like, we're good. We'll settle on that and we'll get 2 food, 2 production. That is not what's going to happen, as you'll see here in a moment. Now, remember when we settled here on this grasslands hills, it retained that 2 food and 2 production, even though we removed the rainforest. Now, if we settle here on this, this plains hills gave us 2 food, 2 production. And then if we settle here on this grasslands hills, you can see only 2 food and 1 production. So it's plains, hills, or bust in terms of if you want to get that that better city center start. And that's something a lot of people, I think, maybe don't notice or can't figure out, like why, what's the difference with the hills is. But or they tend to focus on the tiles around. But you got to keep in mind the city center itself has production value, and getting 1 less production every turn can make a big difference in the early game.